Time for 49ers Rush Podcast. And here's your host, John Chapman.
What is going on, 49ers fans? Man, I don't know about you, Brian, but I just feel better about life in general this week, knowing we got football games coming, even though they're preseason. I'll
take them.
I'll take them, man.
I'll take them.
How are you, Brian? How's
I'm fantastic. I mean, just like you said, we're about to go travel to Canton for a fantasy football expo. We've got actual, I don't count the Hall of Fame game, although I took it, but we got actual football starters we'll be playing in a lot of these games tomorrow. We made it, John. We made it through the darkness and the wilderness of this crazy offseason, and football is about to start.
Yeah. It's funny because, there are times, I'll admit this, it's hard to come up with different ideas and content sometimes where it's like, all right, what do we want to do next? Whenever you have nothing coming in, those days are over because
we have to find 6 different stories 5 days a week. All year in the off seasons, it gets a little tricky finding those stories. So I hear you.
It does get tricky. There's no doubt about it. But so what we're going to do today, I'm excited about this. Brian usually joins us on Thursday, but I'm flying to Canton tomorrow when we usually go live. So we bumped it up a little bit. Hopefully nobody's too upset with that. But what we're going to be doing, best and worst case of the NFC West for each team. So we're going to kind of dive in. If everything goes right, what's an outcome? If everything goes wrong, what's an outcome? And then what does Vegas have to say about each one of those? But before we do that, Brian, a little bit of news, a little bit of heartbreak today in the faithful community with undrafted free agent Leon O'Neal, who a lot of people loved. I had a 5th round grade on him. 49ers got him for free, basically. Strained his groin in camp yesterday, and they gave him an injury waiver designation. So brings it into, we always get these like Rocky types, these back-end roster guys you fall in love with, and so he is gone. So they brought in a cornerback to replace him, which tells me 2 things. 1, special teams is a priority on the back end of your roster, and 2, cornerback might be a little bit more of an issue than we thought because Emmanuel Mosley's hamstring continues to be an issue. But they brought in cornerback Ken Crowley, who was with New Orleans for 6 years. He was with Miami for 1 year, mostly a special teamer, but he's an outside corner, not a slot guy. And so we'll see. And he even took his number, which is cold-blooded. So you step in and
it's a business. It's a harsh business.
It is, man. So, yeah, it stinks. Maybe Leon O'Neal gets brought back at some point. Going to be out, though, for a couple weeks with a groin strain, which don't want to hurt that. Anyway, so having said that, that's rough. We have gotten through training camp with a few injuries, and you're starting to see injuries take place, and especially with preseason games and full contact. This is the time. This is the time.
Yep.
All right, so Brian, let's jump in. We have started all of our NFC West conversations with the Seattle Seahawks. So let's start there. Kind of walk us through how we're going to paint this picture of the best and worst case for the Seattle Seahawks.
So my idea behind this segment was this is the time of year when everybody's in first place. Everybody's 0-0. Hope is at an all-time high for all 32 teams. But we all know that's not how it finishes. There's going to be 14 teams that make the playoffs. There's going to be a lot of heartache. There's going to be expectations that don't get met. And there's going to be teams that come out of nowhere. So I wanted to make that specific to the NFC West for all you 49ers fans. So we're going to go through the best case for each team, starting with the Seahawks. I'll do some bullet points. John, will give his opinion on these as well. And then we'll do the worst case, basically what could go wrong and what could go right. Now, one caveat is technically anybody can lose and anybody can win. We're doing a little more realistic.
Right.
So it's not obviously, spoiler alert, best case is not the Super Bowl for the Seahawks. It's just not. That's not the best case scenario for Seattle. Could they technically at any given Sunday? But we're going to kind of have a realistic approach to this. So let's start in Seattle, as we always do, starting from the bottom. Ugh. Now we're here. All right, so to me, the best case for them, is 8 wins. If things go well, I just quote the quarterback situation, and we're seeing that it's not been glowing for Geno and Locke in camp. It's not like we had doubts, John, and all of a sudden Geno Smith is ascending and Locke puts it all together. No, it's kind of our doubts have been reassured. So I say best case scenario is either Geno Smith's the starter. He's their best option. He plays well enough to get the ball to the playmakers. If you can get the ball enough to DK Metcalf, if you can get the ball to Tyler Lockett, and they're able to come up with plays, you could squeak out a few extra games. I think I had them predicted for 4-13, but you can squeak out an extra 4 games in some of these one-score games if your playmakers are able to make plays. Or, here's a fun one for you, if Jimmy Garoppolo's the starter.
I was curious to see how you're going to factor that in there because, if I had to bet right now, which I wish this was out there, pick where Jimmy G winds up, Seattle's got to be at the top of the list, which I hate. Mm-hmm. I really don't want him to go there, but
I think it seems more and more likely, and I've asked you, we've discussed this obviously many, many times on this show and on my show, but it's seeming, at least on my side, more and more likely that Jimmy will actually get cut and that he's not actually getting the trade interest that they hoped, and they're not going to want to carry him on the roster at this point. I think they put him on, not that preseason depth chart means anything, but he's listed as the 4th quarterback. He's working off to the side.
Yeah.
In their mind, in his mind, he's past San Francisco, so it's looking like they might drop him. He could end up in Seattle. But that's not for sure thing yet. So if he does, I still kind of put that in the best case scenario. If Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter for the Seahawks, I'll give them an extra 4 possible wins.
I would too.
Yeah,
that bothers me. That bothers me, man.
Yeah.
Because they want to run the ball. They go out and they draft some big offensive linemen. They spend one of their premier top 40 picks on a freaking running back. They've got Rashard Penny. Like, they want to run the ball and then hit deep with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. That's what they want to do. Now, I don't think Jimmy fits into that plan, but he is miles ahead of whatever they have. I think Uncle Rico would be an improvement. And Vegas... They have their over-under at 5.5 wins. So they're basically saying, 6 wins would be a success. 5 wins is about where they're going to be. They're a bad team. They're a bad team. You think about the defensive side of the ball. Who's good? The Quandre Diggs? All right, he's great.
You need Jordan Brooks to... I actually have this in my notes. Jordan Brooks fills the Wagner-size hole in that defense. You need him to make a big leap. He's shown promise, but he's also missed... He can tackle. We know that, but he's missed on a lot of assignments. He's had issues in coverage here and there. He needs to make a big break, and you need to find somebody on the pass rush, and you need somebody in the secondary to cover. There's just not a lot. There's not enough talent there. Honestly, even which is why even if they do play well, I've still got them at 8 wins. A couple other bullet points on their best case scenario. You mentioned the run game. Rashad Penny needs to stay healthy. That is one bright spot they had. Is he finished the season as one of the most efficient running backs over the last 4 games of last year. But this is a guy who's missed nearly half of his possible NFL games. So the chances of that happening are low. You need Kenneth Walker to make a jump either as a secondary complementary piece, or if Penny does get hurt, does Walker step in and kind of do that? And you need this offensive line, like you mentioned. They didn't bring back Dwayne Brown. They've got some rookies, but you need them to play well right away. That's a lot of things. And I even have get some lucky breaks as one up there, because you need the ball to bounce your way, all just to get to 8 wins. That's how I see the best case scenario for Seattle.
Yeah. Big Papa, look at this. Could you pay a $1 million fee with the designation not to go to the NFC West team? Yeah, the NFL's got some pretty big, hardcore, you can't do those things. But, I wish they could.
That'd be fun.
God, I just want them out. And, back to your thing about Jimmy G, Shanahan joked a little bit this week. They didn't even give him a playbook. He doesn't even have the playbook this year, which he probably knows all the plays anyway. They're not changing anything. But, yeah, he's not playing for the 49ers unless Trey Lance, has a crazy injury or something. Maybe then
before cut day, it would have to happen in the preseason because I think by the time cut day comes around, he's going to be one of the people. If for some reason they haven't lined up a trade partner, I think Garoppolo's getting the axe there.
Right.
So let's jump into worst case scenario.
Oh yes, I like this. And Coach Cruz, look at this. Seattle's just good enough to miss out on Stroud and Young. He's looking forward as always. I love it, Coach. Sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
Well, it's interesting that you missed that because I don't think they are good enough to just miss out on those guys. I have the worst case overall, which I think is a lot more likely than not, is they have the number 1 overall pick in the 2023 draft. If they do not get Jimmy Garoppolo, If Geno and Locke are awful, which we are pretty confident they will be, if Penny gets hurt, which is like a 50-50 or higher shot at this point, as I mentioned, if Kenneth Walker doesn't step up as a rookie, their offensive line very well could end up being in the bottom 10 if those rookies don't really ascend. And their defense is probably already going to be bottom 10. So if you don't at least get to kind of league average, they could be bottom 5. All of these things can happen. Throw in the fact that they have one of the hardest schedules in the NFL, going up the NFC West and the AFC West. Everything is just lining up for the Seahawks just to have an awful year. So 49ers fans relish in it, bathe in it. This is the year where the Niners could be really, really ascending, and the Seahawks could have the complete opposite.
Man, I hate to say this, and this is a character flaw. I understand that. I want them to lose every damn game. I don't care if they get Stroud or Young. I don't care. I want them to burn. I just want bad things. Now, they do play this week. They play against the Bengals. Oh, sorry. No. Seahawks play against the Steelers Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to catch that, which I'm excited about that game, I think I'm going to be working the draft or that time at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But I really want to watch that game.
That's on Saturday, you said?
Saturday at 4 p.m.
So you and I will be in the same room. We'll be we'll be changing. Yeah. I'm sure we'll have stuff to say.
I'm excited about it. All right, so that's Seattle. Let's go to the Cardinals, I believe.
We'll do Arizona next. Right. Cool. So we're going kind of bottom to top here. Best case scenario, the way I see it, is that they do have an outside shot to win the division. We have to be a little realistic. They were the top team in the NFC through a little over half of the season last year, so we have to be realistic. I'm not a believer in them, but once again, this is possible scenario. So there is a path to them winning the NFC West. I think their absolute best case scenario is they actually can make it and lose in the NFC title game. I don't think there's a realistic path of them making it to the Super Bowl, but if things fall right, which we're going to go over those in just a second, there is a path for them to build on that hot start, not crumble the way they have been known to under Kingsbury, and actually find a momentum to make it to the NFC title game before ultimately losing to the Bucs or the
There's
Packers.
There's some talent there. There's no doubt about it. Vegas has them at 8.5 wins, which is, like you said, you get into the tournament, who knows?
Right.
8.5 wins, that means they get 9 wins probably in. That's right
in
on
the
the
NFC.
cusp.
In the NFC, yeah, I think there's a good shot because of those 6 and 7 spots are really going to be tough, and it could be a number of teams. So here's some of the things I have for the Cardinals that they really need to go right, and you'll notice there's quite a few of them. So let's be realistic. Even though I say they could get to the NFC title game, they're talented enough. They really need a lot to go right. Obviously, it starts with Kyler Murray staying healthy. He has not done that yet. I didn't even put in here, but I'm thinking now, he also needs to not play Xbox, and he needs to do his 4 hours of study. That just goes without saying. But, I mean, even if we keep those things in mind, Kyler Murray has been an MVP candidate during parts of the season. He has led his team to, I think they got as high as like 7 or 8-1 last year. This is a team that at least has the ability to go far, but they have to go 4-2 to start the season. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be out the first 6 games. They've got some juggernauts, but they also have a couple toss-ups, so I don't think they'll go 0-6, but they really need to go 4-2. They need to have a winning record when Hopkins comes back so they can keep that momentum going. They need James Conner to repeat 2021, which was a little bit of an outlier season for him. We'll talk about that more in the worst case. They need Marquise Brown to pick up right where he left off with Kyler Murray in Oklahoma and to take a leap as a truly wide receiver 1, which he'll need to be at least for the first 6 weeks of the season. Defense needs to step up big time, especially the defensive backs and the pass rush. We mentioned with some of the Camp Nuggets last week that the Cardinals, the secondary is really the one position that's still not very solidified. Arizona doesn't really know which way they're going with regards to their secondary, and someone needs to step up to replace Chandler Jones while Watt still playing at a relatively high level.
Yeah, we'll see there. And I got to take a quick minute. What's up, Paul? I believe today's your birthday, Paul. Happy birthday, brother, from all the way across the pond. I love it, man. Dude's just freaking awesome. Paul is a tremendous individual that just does so much for the 49ers faithful community overseas. So I love it. I love it, man. Glad that you're here. Now, here's my question with the Cardinals, outside of the many questions that are already there. I think they've had about as bad an offseason as possible. Just got rid of their running backs coach, I believe. They placed on leave for charges that took place in the offseason. You've got the head coach making fun of play calling with Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray made Kyler call the plays for a while because this S is hard. Kind of, yeah, it's a bad look.
42nd birthday. What's up, Paul? Congrats, man. That is awesome.
Happy birthday.
The Cardinals play the Bengals Friday at 4:30. So right before the 49ers game, they come on. And again, 8.5 wins is what Vegas projects. So, if you look last year, the 49ers got that last playoff game at 10-7. So you're right on the cusp if a couple things break your way. But man, it's weird when we're talking, you talked about best case, but I feel like worst case, like this could be a 6-win team.
Or my worst case, 5 wins. I actually went through their schedule thinking of the opposite of what could happen here with all those bullet points I just had. So let's say Kyler gets hurt again. He's been hurt at some point every single season. You can kind of, because of his playing style, because of his build, that's very much in the cards. Let's say they go 2-4 with that. I think it's very realistic to start the season 2-4 without DeAndre Hopkins. Connor regresses or gets hurt. So James Conner has played 5 seasons now, 4 for the Steelers and 1 for the Cardinals. He has never played an entire season. Even last year, he did not play the entire year. He had 18 touchdowns in 2021 between rushing and receiving. 4 total years with the Steelers, 26 touchdowns total over 4 years. So the chances are he's going to regress more to that. And that was with the good Steelers offensive line those first couple seasons, as opposed to what he did last year. Brown, I still think Hollywood Brown's a good wide receiver, but I don't think he is a transcendent wide receiver 1. So he's good, but not good enough to lift the team. Defense very well could be bottom 10. And my final note is just Kingsbury.
He's bad, man.
Yeah.
He's bad. Kime's bad. All of it's just bad. It's just bad.
So I went through the entire schedule, keeping these things in mind, and it could be, to me, worst case was actually only coming away with 5 wins, which would give them a top 10 pick in the 2023 draft, most likely.
Yeah, and hey, we got this right here from the Ramley Sports Report. I want to appreciate you joining this conversation, and I think that this is key to what this whole conversation is. The 49ers definitely, they made it to the NFC Championship as reported here, but they got smoked by Colt McCoy and the backups for, the Cardinals. That was the lowest point of the year last year.
I was at that game, by the way.
Oh, it was bad, man. And that's the NFL. In the NFL, even if you're a bad team like the Detroit Lions, they smoked the Cardinals. Smoked the Cardinals. And so those things happen. You can look at the Rams. The Rams got blown out. Who beat them really bad? Was it the Falcons? Somebody who beat them really? I need to look that up.
The Cardinals did. The Cardinals whooped up on the Rams in the first game they played.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think
it was the Cardinals. The Cardinals beat them by 20 points.
Yeah, let's see here. Cardinals beat them by 17. They lost to the Titans by 12. The 49ers smoked them 21 points on Monday Night Football. Yep. That's the NFL. It's a matchup thing, and it's hard to sustain that for 17 games, or if you're going all the way to the Super Bowl 21 games, it's hard. That's why we cover this. It's so easy. And man, hey, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It's so easy just to say, oh, this is the best team. It's over. But that's not the NFL. There's never been an undefeated team that's won a Super Bowl. There has been a defeated team. Hashtag,
that was beautiful. Beautiful.
I
was in New York. That was 2008. And I was in New York for that giant Super Bowl where they knocked off the Patriots, who went 17-1. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that was incredible. I was glad. I was pulling for the Giants, and I hate the Giants with a passion. Oh, by the way, let's do a quick segue here. Did you get a chance to watch Hard Knocks last night by any chance?
Absolutely, and let me tell you, I put a tweet out right before it started that I'm buying Lions shares. I've mentioned on this show when we did our power rankings, I'm high on Detroit, and boy, after watching Hard Knocks, I'm even higher. Like, I'm ready to run through a wall for Dan Campbell. Sorry if this is a spoiler for you guys. I won't mention too many specifics, but I'll say the safety dance song they played with the Guardian caps and Aaron Glenn. And Deuce Staley,
that was my favorite part. They're
going at it back and forth, offense, defense, as two guys who have been friends for years. Oh, absolutely loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was fun. And probably my 2 favorite parts was the Deuce Staley, Aaron Glenn matchup, and then that speech by Jamal Williams, which has been put on Twitter.
I saw it on Twitter, so I didn't mention that. But yeah, I was going to run through a wall for Jamal Williams there. Put me on the Lions.
Man, having said that, I don't think they're going to do too great. But yeah, it's interesting. It's a fun experiment. The fact that the entire offensive coaching staff are all former players.
I love that they went through and they said, "Oh, I'm so and so, 11 years in the NFL, so 12 years in the NFL." Like these are guys who have done it. It's an interesting experiment because I'm not sure we've ever had a team that had that many ex players in prominent positions. So I'm excited to and I'm high on them. And we talk about camp nuggets. We covered the whole league. Good things coming out, especially on the offensive side of the ball so far with Detroit.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Any more on the Cardinals before we jump to the Rams?
I think we've trashed them enough. I think 8.5 wins is enough. Okay, well, the season will trash them. I think we'll be proven right. Both of us, I believe, had them missing the playoffs. I think I had them finishing at 8-9. So let's go to the defending Super Bowl champions. I hope the Ramelia Sports Report is still on here. I love that there's somebody outside of the 49ers family listening to this show. So best case scenario, look, let's be honest. They can repeat as Super Bowl champions. They have the talent. They just did it. They've got the coach. Here are some of the things they need to go right. It's not that many. So they need Stafford's elbow to be a non-issue. We've already started to see reports that they're already feeling better about it, and it was a lot of concern. And it doesn't seem to affect his play at all. It's more just a pain tolerance thing. And, even as Niners fans, you got to say Stafford is known for his pain tolerance. He's, has a reputation for playing through injury. So as long as that doesn't become too detrimental, Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson form an elite wide receiver duo. I think they're already kind of there.
Yeah, as good as anybody in the NFL.
Exactly. It's the 1-2 punch. If Robinson is playing like he's capable of and what is looked like he's been playing in camp, we already seen what Cooper Kupp can do. That is going to be damn near uncoverable. OBJ resigns. In time for the playoffs. If you've got that,
it's going to happen.
I think too. I think the Rams are going to be in a position where they're once again riding high in the NFC. Odell Beckham would love to run it back. He's already in the LA area. Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, and then you throw Odell Beckham Jr. in there. That's just going to be very tough, even for a good defense like the Niners. Cam Akers returns to form. We've seen some good things out of camp, that he is looking a little bit like the old Cam Akers, and he stays healthy. And then finally, you need a pass rusher to step up opposite Leonard Floyd, because Von Miller, who was such an integral part of their playoff run and Super Bowl run, is now in Buffalo.
Yeah, it's frustrating, man. But the one thing that they have to have, even more so than in the past, is they got to stay healthy. Yeah. Which they have, man, I don't know what black magic they have done with that team, but man, they have done very, very well to insulate themselves from injuries, and they just don't get hurt. And since McVay showed up, and I'd say this. They're projected to get 10.5 wins, which is the, tied for second highest. The three teams that are projected for more wins, according to Vegas, Tampa Bay,
Buffalo,
Green Bay, and Buffalo. Those are the three that have 11.5 win total. Then you've got the Rams at 10.5. So they're a damn good team. They do have a crazy schedule. And yeah, they're thin, but man, their star power is as good as anybody in the NFL for sure.
And that's been one of the big questions, has been because they're like stars and scrubs. That's the kind of the nickname for this process, where you pay not just good players, but they have some of the most elite players at positions. The best, maybe defensive player of all time in Aaron Donald, certainly the best cornerback, or at least top 3 in the league, and Jalen Ramsey. Cooper Kupp, at least last year, was the best wide. So you've got the top of the top elite. A lot of these positions, especially on defense, not as much on the depth side. So if you do have a major injury, if you lose a Jalen Ramsey, if you lose Aaron Donald, it's going to be an entirely different outlook. So let's go over to the worst case scenario. And I think even worst case, this team's just too good. I've still got them as a wild card team. I think the worst case, you would need an insane amount to go wrong for this Rams team just not to make the playoffs. But I think it is very realistic that they won't win the division. I think the 49ers will give them a run in that department. I mentioned that the Cardinals, if things fall right, could even win the division. So I've got them as a wild card team. But that also means they could lose in the first round. So worst case scenario for the Rams, I believe, is that they're a wild card team, maybe like the 5th or 6th seed, and they do lose in the wild card round and don't advance past that. Some of the things that would lead to that: Stafford misses time. Maybe this elbow thing becomes a bigger deal than we originally thought. The running backs don't stay up or stay healthy. Darrell Henderson, their number 2, also had health issues. And the running back they just drafted, they've just kind of reactivated him, but he actually started the season with health issues. And the defense regresses without Von Miller and without anybody else to step up.
Yeah, and man, you got to give it to McVay. He's never had a losing record. 9-7 was the worst year that they've ever had there. They didn't make the playoffs that year, but 4 out of 5 times they've, mid in the playoffs. 2 Super Bowl appearances. The dude's just consistent. That's just all there is to it. And they'll go all in. So even if somebody is injured, they'll spend whatever draft capital they don't have to go get somebody. I got scared when I saw the Roquan Smith trade thing because I was like, man, I can see the Rams going and getting him and Bobby Wagner next to each other bothers me.
We actually had in Legit Football today the Chargers as an eye. Can you imagine the Chargers getting even better with all those signings they have? If you put a stud middle linebacker like Roquan Smith on top of the Khalil Mack and the J.C. Jackson, like, wow. Like, that team is in it to win it. I'm not saying, I haven't heard any rumors, just so we're clear. I don't know that's, but we just, as far as a good fit, that just seems to be a team that could make that kind of move.
I like it. And I want to say shout out to Greg here. He says 2 more days till football. I love it, man. Now, we're going to be doing our Patreon-only show today at 3 p.m. With the 49ers Cutback crew. Training camp is over for the 49ers, so we're going to wrap that up. If you want to check that out, patreon.com/49ers Rush Podcast, or just Google 49ers and Patreon. We're the first one that pulls up. And so that's going to be Steve Young tier and above, extra show every single week throughout the entire season. That's what we're doing. So yeah, I love that. So please come join us there, and let's go to the Niners, the last team. Brian, best case scenario for the 49ers?
Now, let me start by saying this is best case the way I see it. That doesn't mean that this is actually going to happen or that a better case couldn't happen. But I think the best case is they make it to the Super Bowl and lose. I just can't. So much would have to go right for them to run the full gamut. Does that mean the Niners are capable of it? Sure. Any team with that kind of talent is capable of it. But I think if you guys make it to the Super Bowl in Trey Lance's first year as a starter, you guys should be holding your head high, and the future is only bright from here. Some of the things I have as bullet points. Lance accounts for 30-plus total touchdowns, meaning he's throwing the ball as well as using his mobility. The run game excels, which is going to mean certain players stay healthy, Eli Mitchell in particular. I know you've mentioned this a lot on your show. The new offensive line starters, especially on the interior, they really need to step up and at least be a league average. You don't need them to be elite right off the bat. The way Shanahan's scheme works, that run zone scheme, is you just need guys to be athletic, to know their positioning, to make their blocks, to allow their running backs to hit the hole and make a big gain. So you don't need them to be elite, but you need them to at least be efficient. Defense remains top 5, meaning Nick Bosa stays healthy. Charvarius Ward becomes a solid secondary addition. And then we talk about the weapons of on the Rams, but what about Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle? Holy trinity of headaches for defenses.
I love it, man. The Vegas lines, 9.5 wins, which is what they did last year, right? They went 10-7. So that's right where they're at last year. Can Trey there's going to be major issues with Trey Lance. It's going to happen. He's 22 years old. He's played 10 quarters of football. But can he be consistent? We had the same issues with Jimmy Garoppolo. Remember, we were 2-4 last year with Jimmy G. So it's not like it's just going to be smooth sailing, especially with this schedule. And so, like, win totals and all those things, it's scary because, man, you're playing the AFC West, you're playing the NFC West.
You're playing a playoff schedule as a second-place team. You've got went over this.
Third place.
Oh, did they finish third place? That's right. That's right. Because the Cardinals, in my mind, the Cardinals are already out of the playoffs. So
right.
But yeah, so the best case is you win the NFC West and you make it to the Super Bowl and lose probably to the Buffalo Bills. But that would be an amazing season for San Francisco.
I would take it. I would take it in a heartbeat because that would mean Trey Lance is progressing and that offensive line's holding up. And whatever questions you had, I don't think there's many questions on the defense, but you're playing some top-tier defense at that
Mainly
point.
Be health-related, which isn't a question. Like if your defense stays healthy, they're going to be top 5. That you kind of money in the bank there.
Right. So, all right, let's go. Let's bring it down. We're not all sunshine and rainbows here. Brian, what is the worst case? If everything goes wrong for the 49ers, what does 2022 look like?
I think worst case is they finish about 8-9 and miss the playoffs. I think you've got a lot that hinges on the success of Trey Lance and secondly on the interior offensive line, and they could go hand in hand. It could be an issue, whereas if those young interior offensive linemen don't give Lance enough time to where he, as an inexperienced, and not just in the NFL, he only started, I think, about 16 games in college. This is not a guy who was a 4-year starter and has all this experience. So if he gets dealt with a lot of pass rush issues, that could affect his decision-making. So it's all going to hinge on that and how Lance performs. And if he's going to show flashes. Like, I would bet money. You're going to see moments that you're like, wow, Lance is amazing. He's the future. And even if he struggles this year, he can still absolutely be the future for San Francisco. But if that is the case, with that tough schedule and that tough division, you're talking about they're too talented to get less than 8 wins unless they have a ton of injuries. I say 8-9, miss the playoffs. My bullet points, before you give me your thoughts, John, and before these Niners fans completely roast me and I don't get brought back onto the show, Mitchell gets hurt. Obviously Eli Mitchell was a revelation as a late round rookie last year, but he did have some injury issues. And no other running back steps up, right? If Sermon, who I've actually seen better things about in this camp, if he doesn't do that, we kind of know what we're getting with Wilson. TDP isn't quite ready. Running game is so integral to how Shanahan runs this 49ers offense. We mentioned the interior offensive line. If they struggle and make things harder for Lance, and I'm going to reiterate just how tough their schedule is, just by playing the NFC and AFC West. If those things all kind of line up, really Lance more than anything, 8-9 miss the playoffs.
Yeah, I think so too. Just because the defense is just too good. Ben, he says it well. We need a bunch of injuries to only win 8 games. But you don't have to look far in the 49ers history to see kind of what can go wrong. 2019, you go to the Super Bowl. Then the very next year, 2020, you go 6-10. Now, this is a much better roster than that 2020 squad. This is by far the best roster put together, top to bottom, since Kyle Shanahan's been here. And we'll just have to see here. I just think, man, Marcus' quest for 6, man, we've been saying it for a while, and I hope that it kind of takes place. But, man, and I'll say this, we beat the Rams week 17 without Trent Williams. He's very paramount to the success of the 49ers for sure. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that tackle spot, there's some issues there. There's no doubt about that. That is true. But I don't know. They seem to have tried their hardest to insulate themselves from injuries so that 2020 won't happen again.
I want to reiterate that it's not just the injury. So just so you guys as Niners fans know, it hinges so much on your quarterback. And I know you guys have high hopes, and there's no questioning his physical ability, but it's an entirely different thing with a guy who you haven't seen much of and doesn't have an insane amount of starting experience going up against NFL defenses as the full-time starter. He's going to have great weeks. He could end up having bad weeks, and you pile enough of those together, and you have the ball bounce a few ways, and you only get a couple key injuries here and there. It doesn't need to be a ton of injuries for this kind of 8-win scenario to play out.
Yep. Yeah. So we'll have to see there. And again, what does Vegas say? Vegas says 9.5 wins. And of course, we got our first game freaking Friday, 5:30 against the Packers. And I don't know, I have problems. Everybody knows I have problems. But I looked at all of the game lines for this week just because I think it's funny. The 49ers are the only team in the NFC West favored in week 1 of the preseason. I'm not saying bet anything on preseason just because you don't know who's going to play what. But we do know Trey Lance is going to get a play, probably about 10 plays. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to play at all.
He was clear saying, what am I going to play one series for? What good does that do?
Yeah, we'll see there. But I love it, man. And Brian, I think I love these conversations because as 49ers fans, we have to deal with these teams that we see 6 times a year. And this is the path to the playoffs. Win your division. Even though last year they got 3rd, they still made it in. They got pretty lucky. There were a couple of tie-break situations that almost needed to happen. You had to have an interception in overtime on the road to get in there. But you get in, you got a chance with the way this team's built. But yeah, this is going to be fun, man. Best and worst situations. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Brian, anything before we jump off? Next time, we're going to be seeing each other in person here in a couple days.
That's right. We're both going, just to reiterate, we will be in Canton, Ohio, the birthplace of the NFL. I'm going to go to the NFL Hall of Fame for the first time. I am stoked. We're going to the Fantasy Football Expo. That's why we're there, but we're also going to be there for Draft Night Out on Saturday. So much fun, so much football. Going to be great to see you in person again, John. There will be no 30 minutes of football this week on Friday because I'll be in Ohio, but as always, if you guys pop up, we'll have another show on Tuesday. We'll have John on again here soon. We're going to be doing it 5 days a week during the season. And as always, legitfootball.com. Sign up for free. Get completely caught up on the NFL every single morning.
I love it, man. That is incredible. Now, just want to say thanks to everybody. Content, again, we got our Patreon-only bonus episode at 3 o'clock today with 40 Hours Cutback as they are finishing up 40 Hours Training Camp as we speak. And that's going to do it for us here. But until next time, stay strong, faithful.